The answers given in this interview are audio clips of actual interviews of DeVos, but obviously manipulated for satirical purposes. Please welcome cartoon Betsy DeVos. So, Secretary DeVos, how has it been being Secretary of Education?
I don't know. Overall, I can't say overall.
Well, do you have any personal experience with running an educational organization?
Not personal experience.
So there's a chance you have non-personal experience. Explain exactly how that works.
I don't know. But I'm committed.
Ah yes, commitment is key to anything. But I personally think someone needs to go back to school.
Maybe I should.
Yeah. So tell us about the nation's schools. Have you been visiting many?
I hesitate to talk about all schools in general.
But you're the Secretary of Education.
I'm not so sure how exactly that happened.
Okay, so how have you been handling underperforming schools? Do you know much about them?
I have not intentionally visited schools that are underperforming.
So you have not intentionally visited them. Have you been unintentionally visiting them? Like, have you just ever happened to walk by a school?
I have.
Really? And what did you gain from that visit? What did you learn?
Schools are made up of individual students attending them.
Ah yes, a very keen observation. I can tell you have an eagle eye. Well, since we're running out of time, do you have anything else to say, or do you think you should just leave and let us start the show?
Maybe I should.
It's the Late Bell! With a cold open by Nick Rasool. Special guest starring Nithilan Vincent and Madame Seals. And creative writing by Curdy Desai. And now, right from his basement, it's your host, Robert Hunter!
Welcome everyone, the bell has rung, class has begun, please take your seats. How's everyone doing tonight? You know, I'm glad that most people are doing well, but can you guess what group of people aren't doing well, but really should because they're trying to do good? No, it's not the English language. That sentence is grammatically correct. It's actually teachers. Because in this day and age, teachers have to work multiple jobs in order to make ends meet. But that's not just because teachers aren't paid enough. Schools in general aren't given enough money because 8 in 10 teachers had to buy school supplies with their own money. That's like having an education system that makes students take a standardized exam, except the students themselves have to pay to take it. Oh wait. That's called the SAT. Or the ACT, of course. Now, you would expect teachers to unionize or something, especially since we've seen teachers across the nation walk out. But no, the only state in which teacher strikes have happened and in which there's a teacher union is Colorado. Instead, teachers have used sick days and other leave to walk out. Really. Usually when someone calls in sick, it's usually because they just wanted to stay home and rest. So, that's what teachers have to go through. But what about students? A recent article states that more and more parents are requiring their students to be straight A students and athletic superstars, gifted musicians and artists, which are all wonderful goals, but they're long-term and pretty narcissistic. Wait just a minute. Wait a minute, are they targeting me? I am not narcissistic at all. Why would you ever think that of me? It's not like I carry around at all times a portrait of myself that I painted. Anyways, there is some concern about what we put kids through these days. 20 or 30 years ago, kids roamed around playing with neighborhood friends, while now they're constantly in childcare. This is especially worrying because the lack of free play that children get prevents them from learning social and emotional skills. And all young mammals learn through play. Except, I'm not sure that's the case with humans because I heard that in order for them to learn anything, they have to sit in a desk for 8 hours a day. But what about all the things in the world that parents have to worry about to make sure that their kids don't get into, like marijuana? Because yes, good old marijuana has been impacting education, and in a surprisingly mildly positive way. See, the legalization of marijuana is becoming more prevalent, what with it being legal in 9 states now, including DC. Some systems are moving away from the old scare tactic model, where some random man would threaten you with a fried egg. Yes, beware of the protein. Now they're moving towards a newer model focused on informing students to give them a comprehensive knowledge about the effects and consequences. This new educational model is being pioneered by the Being Adept group, who are trying to provide accurate information on drugs. I personally think this is a great idea, informing students about the specifics of an issue rather than just telling them, don't do this. But wait a minute. Shouldn't we be giving students a comprehensive knowledge of all present-day impending issues that they will surely have to deal with in their lives? Nah, that makes way too much sense. We've got a great show for you all. We'll be right back. Alright, welcome back. I'm joined now by Nithilan Vincent. Nithilan, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Robert.
Alright, so to start off, tell us a bit about yourself.
So I'm a junior at Chattahoochee. Well, now I'm a rising senior, and I'm here to talk about education, my education experience as a high schooler.
Alright, so you're a junior, and by now you've had many teachers. So what are some teaching methods or activities that have really stood out to you?
Well, for me personally, the way that I learn best is just straight up lecturing, because I know a lot of teachers rely a lot on self-study or working in groups and things like that, but that stuff just kind of disinterests me. But when a teacher's up there and they're just talking, it's that personally works best for me.
So even though the education system has worked out fairly well for you, are there any problems or issues that you've noticed? Do they affect you in any way?
So I think one of the major problems is that the way that the education system works, it's mainly treated as a one-size-fits-all approach, where teachers don't alter their style for the favor of other students. Because, as I mentioned, the straight-up lecturing, how it works for me, that doesn't work for others. That doesn't work for other students, and I know plenty of students who complain about certain classes where that's the way it's taught. And I personally don't find a problem, but they do, and that's one of the problems the education system has with that. And I think that's a result of the macro culture surrounding education, such as with how the College Board emphasizes these AP tests, and then kids take these AP classes where they're taught towards that test, because that's what matters in the end, not the actual education. So if we want to see a change happen in those kinds of classes, the College Board itself will have to alter how their tests are administered, or there needs to be a dramatic shift in terms of culture regarding these tests in the first place.
Right, but has there ever been an issue that directly pertains to you?
Okay.
That you've had an issue with?
So pertaining to me, definitely there have been classes where starting my high school experience with classes like AP Gov and AP World, those classes have always been tougher for me, because the material is just so dense and there's so much of it that simple lecturing in class can't cover it all. So I'm expected to do a lot of reading by myself, and I had to learn to study in a way that I wasn't forced to in earlier grades, such as middle school. So that has been a personal challenge of mine. I've gotten better at it, but that is definitely a sticking point that has stuck out to me.
Alright, so this is more based on your growth.
Yeah, because since I'm been lucky enough that the education system worked out for me, I wasn't forced to study until I started taking these kinds of classes. And that's when I began to realize the failings of my teachers.
Okay.
Well, not necessarily a failing, just a way that I wasn't accommodated, I guess.
Okay. So you're doing a full dual enrollment at Georgia Tech next year. How prepared do you feel about basically starting college early? And do you have any concerns, worries, or worries about how this will affect your academic performance?
So my major concern about doing this dual enrollment at Georgia Tech next year is that I'm given a lot of independence, right? Because the way that high school works, you have attendance requirements, and if you miss too much, you'll get detentions and things like that, right? But with college, you're not given strict attendance requirements. As long as you show up for the test days, you'll be fine. And that's where this problem of independence affects me, because I've already taken distance calculus from Georgia Tech, and I had a really hard problem showing up to class. And I feel like that's only going to magnify with me doing all my classes at Georgia Tech next year. And that's why I think that just has to do a problem with like the materials not being communicated in a way that effectively interests me or makes me want to come and learn. It's more like, here's the material, and it's just dryly explained, and I just find myself bored, and I end up thinking that there are better things I can do with my time.
All right, so lastly, if you were an advisor to the principal, what ideas would you pitch to help improve education?
So I don't see the culture regarding AP tests and things like that changing all that soon, but if there is something that I could pitch to the principal, it's to first encourage teachers to incorporate different styles of teaching, right? Not just simple lecturing or relying on group studying or group work, but more variety so that kids can learn the same things in different ways. And that way, it might take more time, but it will result in more kids understanding and not being landed with material that isn't conveyed in a way that they can learn it or be interested in that material. And second, I think that instead of these higher level classes being centered on just learning towards the test, because there's a lot of times where we'll start to go over something in class and they'll be like, yeah, that's not going to show up on the test, you don't have to learn it. If they find a way to like incorporate interesting stuff that may not necessarily show up on the test, but is a way to engage students effectively in the class, I feel like that's something that we can't just skip over, right? Because that'll just cause students to not be as invested in the class. And if we focus on the engaging aspects of the curriculum, students will be more prone to delving into that themselves. And in the future, we'll have kids who the knowledge they learned will actually stick with them because they had invested interest in learning it.
So would your different teaching styles manifest in maybe like project-based learning or something like that?
Yeah, project-based learning is a form of teaching that I personally am not a fan of, but other students are. And I feel like if we incorporate that, then we'll have more students who are engaged in the material that they're learning.
Do you have any specific methods though in mind?
Specific methods. So for one, I feel like we can have different curriculums. Like we already have multiple teachers teaching the same classes, so maybe we have different teachers focus on different kinds of curriculum, and then when students sign up for classes, they can sign up for that kind of curriculum because they know best what the way that they learn, and that way they'll be in a class that they're more engaged in, as opposed to one where they dread.
All right, that's all the time we have. Nithilan Vincent, everybody. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm joined now by Madame Seals. Madame Seals, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. So tell us a bit about yourself.
So my name is Madame Seals. I am originally from Mississippi. I just moved to Georgia about a year ago. I'm a French teacher here at Chattahoochee High School, and this is my 4th year teaching French.
So you come from Mississippi. Is French a big part of the culture there, since it is near New Orleans, Louisiana? Or were you just inspired and enthralled by the language?
So I grew up about an hour and a half from New Orleans. The only influence of New Orleans in my town was Saints football. We're really big fans, who dat? And also crawfish. Like we eat a lot of Cajun cuisine, jambalaya, all of that. But as far as language perspective goes, there wasn't any influence in my town where I grew up. The reason that I loved French was because I had a high school French teacher who in the 80s bought a one-way ticket to Paris, and she became an au pair. She played music on the side of the street with her guitar to get money and taught English lessons on the side. Because of family reasons, she had to move back to Mississippi, but the passion and the love for the language that she got in France, she brought back to Mississippi with her. So when I was in the 3rd grade, some kids needed community service hours, and so they came to my primary school classroom and taught me the basics in French. And I could only say, "Bonjour, je m'appelle Hélène, j'aime la rose," but I loved it. And so I tried to learn everything about French, and we had a French B, and I was a really big nerd, and so I studied really hard for it and won. And when I got to high school, that was the very first thing I knew I wanted to do was like start formal study of the French language.
All right. It's incredibly interesting. So what made you want to become a teacher?
So if I'll be honest with you, teaching was definitely plan B. I wanted to do communications and public relations, and I took an internship my senior year of college and fell asleep every day at my cubicle. And I was like, I cannot do this for the rest of my life. So my goal was to move overseas, specifically to Southeast Quebec in Canada, but I needed to establish credit and have a bit of money in the bank before I could do that. So I decided that, well, I could work on my language and teach at the same time. So I took a couple of classes and ended up becoming a teacher with no formal education in it. My first time practicing teaching was in front of my students for the first time. So I started teaching and I really enjoyed it. It was using my passion, French, all day long, forcing people to speak to me in French. But at the same time, it meshed really well with my personality. So I started teaching because of the passion that I had in French, but I can definitely say that it's evolved now. I think now I still have a passion for the French language, but I continue to teach, and next year I'll be going into my 5th year because I like working with students. And I find that that's my favorite part of teaching now. It's not necessarily the content, which I love, but I enjoy working with students and the dynamic of a school setting.
So is it still your plan to move to Quebec or Canada?
Well, that's a great question. I'm not exactly sure. I would love to support the camp. It's called Camp Livingstone that I work up there with in the summers. Eventually, I would like to spend some time living in a French-speaking country. But as of right now, I really enjoy Georgia and Atlanta. It's very diverse in an international area, which is what I love. So we'll see. I'm not exactly sure. For right now, I'm staying put.
All right, so how is your class structured differently from other French classes or even other subjects?
So for me, French is the subject that I teach, but it's not the most important thing. And I know that if I ever told parents that, they would be like, oh, no, of course it is. But for me, French is just the mean to get to the most important thing. My goal as a teacher is that whether it's a minute, a day, or even a year in my class, that I could have students that walk out of the classroom that know more about themselves, more about the world, and they're ready to be a part of a global economy and a global marketplace. I think as a teacher, I want culturally competent children. And so the way that I'm going to get that is through teaching French in my setting. So at a lower level, it looks like making connections. So in French 1 and French 2, I try to just make connections with my students. Can they learn something about the other subjects in school? Maybe something in history, maybe something in English, and make connections with French. In the upper level class, my goal is to establish community with the students and to get them starting to think about just why they believe what they believe. And you've seen that kind of in a level 4 class this year. You know, what does that look like? Where do people formulate their thoughts from and their beliefs and their values? And how can we integrate this into a global perspective when one day you'll be the leaders of a very diverse group of people? How can we step outside of what we know, our bubble, to better accommodate the other people that we work with? I think that's a very important skill that reaches to all of society, but it can start in a French classroom.
All right, it's a very interesting perspective. Et finalement, à votre avis, quelle est la meilleure partie de l'enseignement et l'apprentissage de la langue française?
Mais donc, la première partie de l'apprentissage, ça c'est mes élèves, bien sûr. Si j'ai juste un de mes élèves qui a une prise de conscience, comme un moment de réalisation entre leur vie et le français, ou même la société et le français, quelque chose comme ça, c'est pour moi une victoire, un succès. Parce qu'à la fin du jour, c'est pas le français, c'est pas juste des mots de vocabulaire, le grammaire, toutes les choses comme ça. C'est les élèves qui, un jour, vont diriger notre monde avec quelque chose de différent que les personnes avant eux.
Merci, merci Madame Fields. On va retourner tout de suite. Walking in, closed in by 4 inescapable walls, trying to be myself, my own person. It feels impossible when I know who I need to be or supposed to be. I need to be perfect, someone who will fit the mold, to get into the perfect college, to get the perfect career. But is perfect just that? Being what society deems you to be? Or is it so much more? To become your own person, make your own definition of perfect, is what I hope to discover if I'm forced to learn inside these four inescapable walls. That's all the time we have. Thank you for watching. Have a good night, everyone.